What's up, everybody? Welcome to our second video in the sharpening series. First, we want to thank WorkSharp for sending all of this gear for us to use and to show you so that you can keep your TOPS knives sharp and working properly. There is a coupon code that they've given to us to share with you guys. It's going to be somewhere on your screen, probably around here. Check that out. You'll go to worksharptools.com. You'll be able to use that coupon code to get, I believe it's 15% off of the different tools that you see us using here. Last thing we're going to cover real quick is the blade grinding attachment. This is really handy if, like for me, I personally really like this part for long blades, lawnmower blades, things like that. This part for me it's my favorite. And plus, because I'm left-handed, this is a little bit easier to use because I can turn this on, leave it running, and then I can work it left-handed. The other part's a little more difficult for lefties unless you just turn it on and leave it running. So anyway, point is, we've removed the other attachment. Really simple to remove. You release this, turn it sideways, and it comes right off. This part, you'll see in the instructions, but basically there's a piece that fits, or a part where it fits, and then you just rotate it into place. So once you install this and you put all this together, or once you put this part on, before you can actually use this, you do have to put this knob on before you can put the belts on and start running it. The belts do go over this, or go over this, but this is what keeps them in place. One thing to note, that this blade grinder attachment is an extra part. It doesn't come with the knife and tool sharpener. It's an extra piece. Like I said, I think this part with a package of belts and the knob, I think is an extra $50 if I remember right. When you put this knob on, I believe it says in the instructions to just hand tighten this. You don't want to really torque this part down, or you will strip it out, because it is plastic, I believe, on the inside. So really, you're just going to hand tighten this, and it is threaded backwards. So you're going to tighten it backwards from what you would normally expect. So again, you're just trying to get this to where it feels tight, but not too tight, or you're going to strip out this part and you'll need to get a new one. So be careful there. Once that is in place, this tensioner is what you actually use to put belts on and take them off. It goes in and then it rotates down a little bit. So now that that's done, we basically have a similar setup of belts. So we've got the coarse, then we move to medium, then actually this is medium, then kind of a medium fine, then a fine, and a polishing belt. So it's the same kind of system as the original attachment. They're just larger, wider belts. So move those out of the way, and we'll start here. Again, this rough grit belt, this is more for a knife that is really dull. This is not a knife that you've only used a couple of times and you just want to touch up the edge. For that, you're probably starting with your fine belt. This is going to take off a lot more material, a lot faster. So you only want to use this if you're completely reprofiling an edge. I think that for this knife, I'm not even going to use the medium. I'm going to go straight to the medium fine grit. And we'll start there. So what's cool about this blade grinding attachment, there are people out there who like to modify their knives. One thing to note, that may void your warranty. So keep that in mind, especially if it's a non-TOPS knife. Any kind of modifications you do that might change the way the knife works, if you decide later on that you don't like them, your warranty might be void. So, just keep that in mind. However, some people like to remove the jimping. Some people like to put a 90-degree spine on some of their knives. They like to do things like that. This attachment makes that kind of stuff pretty easy to do because you can use this part here where there's a flat. But again, personally, I have this one at home. I like to use it more for freehand sharpening because that's what I'm used to. That's what I've learned to do here. And because I'm left-handed, this makes it easier for me to do that. So once you have that belt in place, you're going to relieve the tension on this tensioner just by lifting it back up. It's gonna pop into place. It should feel pretty tight. And I can see that we're gonna need to calibrate this a little bit. So refer to the instructions for how to get the calibration just right. That's important. You need to go maybe a little bit more. It's important to make sure it's calibrated right, because if this belt isn't running about as evenly as possible on these wheels, you're gonna get more wear on one side or the other, and that's bad for the machine. Your belts are gonna wear unevenly. You'll just have some issues that you don't wanna deal with. So take the time up front to try to get that calibration just right. There we go. So now this is running pretty evenly along those wheels. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Okay, so this tool does have a similar capability where you can adjust the edge angle. You do that by loosening this or tightening it. And you can see here that we have it set to 25 degrees. These come set to 25 degrees. Again, if you want to go to a wider angle, say for an axe or a hatchet, this will actually go clear up to 35 degrees. That's pretty cool when you're say you've got a splitting axe and you need to get that thing sharp. That 35 degrees, that's probably pretty good for something like that. It also goes clear down to 10 degrees. So if you're doing something like a very thin kitchen knife, or something a kitchen knife, for example, that you want razor sharp, that works really well for that as well. So you can adjust your edge angle. Again, for us, we're looking at about 25 degrees. And the way you use this tool, especially if you're sharpening, you'll notice that there's two wheels right here. Your goal is to be sharpening right in between those two wheels. Okay, so how do I know that I'm hitting 25 degrees? Well, I take the knife that I'm gonna use. In this case, it's a Brothers of Bushcraft. This is a Fieldcraft knife, one of our most popular models of all time. Basically, what you're gonna do is hold that knife, set it flat on this plate that's in front of the belt, and then when you raise it up to run it across the belt, you just wanna keep that same angle. So you go from here to here, and you just run it across your belt. Sounds simple, takes a little bit of practice. So if you're not used to something like this, another good rule of thumb with a sharpener like this, where there is a learning curve, and there's if you do it wrong, you might mess up your knife. Use it on something that you don't care about first. Maybe practice on an old kitchen knife. Maybe practice on an old folder that you got that you don't really care about. But start with something that if you mess it up, you're not ruining something that has sentimental value. So keep that in mind. There is a learning curve. With this one, I'm gonna use that setting where I can just leave it running, and then run this across a few times on each side, and we should have an edge that's nice and sharp. I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. So we're gonna adjust that down by turning that red knob, I believe, this way. Maybe a little bit more. Okay. The rules are all the same. So I'm trying to run this evenly across this belt and keep that same angle the whole way across. When I get the tip about halfway on the belt, I'm gonna pull straight up and off instead of pulling all the way through, because we don't wanna round that tip at all. We wanna keep that nice and sharp. So same rules apply as the other systems we've been using. Okay, another important note. Again, because this knife wasn't really dull, we started with more of a medium grit. That's why I'm just alternating. Normally you would do a few passes on each side before you start alternating. But one thing to keep in mind with this is the pressure. So again, you don't want to push hard on this belt. You'll notice when I started running it across the belt, you didn't hear the machine kind of bogging down. If you hear it bogging down, you're probably pushing too hard. If you don't really feel the contact on the belt, then you're probably not pushing hard enough. I keep my other hand on the knife just to kind of help guide it through. I'm not pushing down with that hand as I'm running it across the belt. It's just so that I can try to help keep it as straight as possible. So that's one thing to keep in mind. That actually feels pretty even. So we're gonna go ahead and switch to the next belt, which in this case is the fine. And you may need to adjust your calibration as you move from different belts. So keep that in mind too, especially once you get to the finishing belt, the stropping belt. You may end up needing to adjust the calibration to keep that belt centered on those wheels. So one thing to note. Okay, so again, this tool being an extra component, this is something that I would say is probably more of an advanced tool. Unless you're used to this kind of setup, it's nice to have the other ones that have the guides, where this is more of a freehand thing. This is probably the one that takes the most practice to use. I'm comfortable with it because this is very similar to how we sharpen our knives here in the building. And I've done a little bit of that on my own. Usually I just hand it to the guys here and they take care of it for me. But I like to know how to do things. And so this one feels comfortable for me, where for some others it may not. But again, I think we've got this dialed in, so we'll give it a shot. Okay, so it feels pretty clean. We could probably refine that a little bit more. Maybe a few more passes on this, and then we move to the strop. But we wanted to show you this one briefly, just so you could see that this is an extra part. Again, this one is handy when you're doing stuff that is maybe larger and is hard to fit into a tool like this. Longer knives like machetes, larger tools like axes and hatchets, lawnmower blades, other things that are maybe don't fit into a smaller tool like that. This is really handy for those types of things. Again, it puts a convex edge on your blade. So as you're trying to decide what's the right sharpener for me, what do I need? Those are questions that you need to answer for yourself. Do you like a flat edge? Do you like a convex edge? Powered sharpeners, they're fantastic for putting a convex edge on things. WorkSharp, I think, makes probably the best ones in the business. So again, thank you WorkSharp for sending us this equipment. Go check out their website, use the coupon code that we showed you earlier. As you're watching these videos that we're putting out on these different sharpeners and different knives that we're sharpening, if there's a knife you want to see, if there's maybe a point that you're struggling with and you want us to explain a little bit better, tips and tricks, things like that, let us know. Leave us a comment. Leave those here below. Hit us up on our other social medias as well. Make sure that you're following these. Make sure you're subscribed, and that you've got the notifications turned on so you can see these videos as they come out. Because again, we're gonna sharpen a lot of our different models. You'll get to see multiple sharpeners in action and multiple TOPS knives in action. So make sure we're covering what you want us to cover, and we'll see you in the next video.